There was one envelope she never opened. It sat in the kitchen drawer, under the rubber bands and the dead batteries, the corner of it gone soft from being handled and put back, handled and put back. Certified. Her name typed across the front in a window of cellophane, last name first, the way the courts and the collectors always wrote it, like her name belonged to them before it belonged to her. Pam knew what was inside the way you know a tooth is going bad before you ever sit in the chair. She just wasn't ready to feel it, so she kept the drawer shut. She paid what they told her to pay. She worked the register at the discount store on Park Heights Avenue and let them take a little more every month. And she told herself that was what a decent woman did. You pay what's owed. You keep your head down. You don't make a fuss over the dead. What nobody told her, what she would not let herself think on those long nights when the radiator knocked and the streetlight came orange through the blind, was a simple thing. Most of that debt was never hers. She had signed her name once, on a line a man held down with his thumb, in a kitchen that smelled like coffee and cigarettes, 18 years married and not knowing any better. And for that one signature she had been paying for going on 2 years now, in a name that the whole block could read off the side of her mailbox. She was 54 years old, and every cent that came out of her had somebody else's mistake riding on it. Her name was Pamela Dorsey, though only the church bulletin and the collection letters ever used the whole of it. Everybody on the block called her Pam. She rang up groceries and phone cards and birthday balloons at the Dollar General 6 days out of 7, and she was good at it, fast and warm. The kind of cashier the old men came in to see, whether they needed batteries or not. She knew which mothers were $1 short and would slide it across herself before the child could see. She'd been counting other people's money her whole life and somehow ended up with none of her own. The store smelled like floor wax and warm plastic, and by the middle of a shift, the smell got into her clothes and rode the bus home with her. Her feet learned the give of that rubber mat by heart, the soft spot near the bag rack where the floor went a little tender, and her hips knew the hour the ache would start without ever looking at a clock. She kept a sweater on the hook by the time clock because the manager ran the air cold. And she kept her good humor on a hook in her chest the same way, taking it down for the customers and hanging it back up the second the door closed behind the last one. People thought a smile like that came free. It came out of her like everything else came out of her, paid for, given over, and not put back. She lived in a row house off Garrison, the marble stoop scrubbed white every Saturday the way her mother had scrubbed it before her, because you could be broke in Baltimore, but you would not be dirty. Not on Pam's watch. Inside, the front room held a couch with a sheet over it and a photograph of her husband Earl in his good suit, gone 3 years now, his heart giving out in a city bus on a Tuesday. And against the wall, low, was a bureau she had bought herself. She had bought it at 17 from a second-hand man on Pennsylvania Avenue, paid for it in pieces over a summer of braiding hair on the stoop. Solid oak, a little brass key that turned a bottom drawer. When she was a girl, that drawer had held her own things, the small private record of a life she meant to have. Now the key was gone, lost in some move years back, and she kept the drawer shut with a strip of packing tape, and she had stopped opening it the way you stop visiting a grave. If you've ever carried a thing in your name that your own hands never spent, stay with her. This was made for women like Pam, like you. Then the letter came that broke the back of it. It was a garnishment notice, though she would not learn that word until later. A man at the courthouse, a thin man with kind eyes who had no time to be kind, slid it across the counter and told her they were going to start taking it straight out of her check now. Not what she could spare. What they decided. He said a number out loud, $14,000, and said it would be years, and she heard it the way you hear a doctor down a long hallway. She drove home, and the city went by grey, and she did not cry, because crying was a fuss, and her mother's voice was in her ear. We pay what's owed, we keep our heads down. You don't shame the dead by fighting over what they left. That voice had been in her 60 years. And maybe that was why she had never once asked whether the debt was even hers to pay. She had signed her name beside Earl's on a loan for a truck he swore would make them money, a truck that was repossessed off this very street while she was at work, and she had gone on paying the ghost of that truck 2 years past his funeral. She paid it the way her mother paid everything, head down, mouth shut, the stains spreading quiet through a name she had kept clean since she was a child on that scrubbed stoop. That night, she sat in the front room with the television on and nobody watching it. She thought about the white marble her mother made her scrub. Be broke if you have to be, her mother used to say, but never let them say you're dirty. And Pam laughed, just once, with no sound in it, because here was the dirt finally. Not on the stoop, on the one thing her mother swore they could never take, her name. She started picking up shifts she didn't have the body for. She took the Sunday hours after church, still in her good shoes, her feet swelling in them by noon. She took the overnight stock crew when the manager begged her, lifting cases of soda in the dark, while the floor buffer hummed 2 aisles over. She brought home the extra, and she handed it straight over, every dollar of it, into the open mouth of that name. She was working more than she had worked in her life, and the number on the courthouse paper did not move, the way a stone in a river does not move no matter how hard the water runs. She didn't tell herself she was tired, she told herself she was being faithful. The two felt the same from the inside. Miss Erlene caught her at the register on a slow Wednesday. Miss Erlene was past 80, a deaconess at the church on the corner, and she came into the Dollar General twice a week for peppermints and a reason to be upright. She set her candy on the belt and looked at Pam's face the long way the old church women look, like they're reading something printed under your skin. "You've been carrying somebody," she said. It wasn't a question. Pam started to say no, started to say she was fine, started the whole tired song. But Miss Erlene wasn't listening to the words. She was counting out her coins, slow, pushing them across one at a time, and she said it like she was talking about the weather, like it cost her nothing. "Baby, your name is the one thing nobody can repossess, long as you keep the key." Then she took her peppermints and went out into the cold, the bell over the door going off behind her, and she never knew she'd said a thing at all. Pam rang up the next customer, and the next. She gave a child his dollar. She smiled, but something had come loose in her chest and would not settle back into its place, and she could not have told you what it was. She went home that night, and the tape on the bottom drawer of the bureau caught her eye in the lamplight. She had not looked straight at that drawer in 3 years. She looked at it now. There was a draft coming up through the floorboards by the bureau, a cold thread of it against her ankles, and she noticed it the way you notice cold when there is nothing else to feel. She put 2 fingers on the dry, curling tape, and then she took them away, and she sat down on the edge of the couch with her coat still on, and she stayed there a long time while the radiator knocked and the orange light came through the blind. She did not open it. She told herself there was nothing in it. She got up and washed the 1 cup in the sink and dried it and put it in the rack and washed it again. The water had gone cold without her noticing, and her hands had gone cold in it, and she stood there at the sink, rubbing the warmth back into her own fingers long after the cup was clean. That same thread of cold still finding her ankles from across the room. The certified envelope was standing up on the counter when she came down, propped against the sugar tin, and she didn't remember taking it out from under the rubber bands. She held it in the grey light before her shift. This envelope she had no memory of moving. She didn't open it, but she left it where her own hands had put it without asking her, facing out, her own name looking at her, and she went to work. It nagged at her for days, that envelope standing up where she could see it. She started to notice things she had trained herself for years not to notice. She noticed that when she handed over her extra at the courthouse window, the thin, kind-eyed man would look at her file and his mouth would tighten, like there was something in there he wanted to say and wasn't allowed to. She noticed the word joint on one of the papers. She noticed that the truck loan had Earl's name on the top line and hers below it, smaller, and a date, and that the date was 3 months before she ever knew that truck existed. One evening, with the television off this time, she finally slid her thumb under the flap of the envelope she'd carried for 2 years. It was not a bill. It was a notice. It used words she had to read 4 times, validation and dispute and portion not attributable, but the shape of it came through. A piece of what they were taking, a real piece, had never been hers under the law at all. She had been paying on it because a voice in her told her that fighting was a kind of dirt. She sat with the paper in both hands at the kitchen table, and she named the thing in her chest for the first time, out loud, in the empty house. "I'm ashamed," she said, "and it isn't even mine to be ashamed of." She thought she would cry then. She didn't. She got up instead and went to the bureau and pulled the dry tape off the bottom drawer in one long strip, and the drawer was swollen shut, and she had to work it, both hands, her whole weight, until it gave with a sound like a held breath let go. Inside was the dust of 17 years and a hair ribbon and a school photograph of a girl with her whole face open. The girl who had paid for this drawer, one braid at a time, so she would have one place in the world that locked. That was only hers. There's a kind of debt that was never yours to begin with. You carry it anyway, quiet, because somebody taught you that keeping the peace was worth more than keeping what's yours. She did not pay the courthouse window everything that Friday. She set $5 aside first, folded it small, and put it in the bottom drawer of the bureau and slid the drawer shut, and that was the whole of it. $5 in an empty drawer, a thing so small it should have meant nothing. It meant she had kept something. For the first time in 2 years, before the open mouth of that name got fed, a part of her check went somewhere only she could reach. By the 3rd week, there was enough in the drawer to count, and she counted it one night at the kitchen table, smoothing each bill flat, and the small stack of it gave her a feeling so unfamiliar she did not have a name for it. $37. Less than she handed over to the courthouse window in a single Friday and never thought twice. But this she had thought about. This she had chosen. And then, the way a tide goes back out, the good feeling drained and left the old floor of her bare again. Because a new letter had come that afternoon and was sitting on the counter, and her stomach had already dropped at the sight of it, and her hand had already started reaching for the drawer to take the $37 back out and feed it to the name like she always had. She caught her own hand halfway there. She made herself put it down. She sat on her hands at her own kitchen table like a child in church, and she did not undo the one thing she had done for herself. Then she did the harder thing. She took the notice to a free legal clinic in a church basement downtown, a folding table and a young woman with a laptop and a line of tired people, and she put the paper down, and she asked the question her mother's voice had forbidden for 60 years. She asked whether all of this was really hers to pay. It wasn't, not all of it. It took months, letters she had to write and sign and mail, certified herself, her own name going out now instead of only coming in. There were weeks she wanted to quit, when a new letter came and her stomach dropped to the floor, and the old habit reached for her, told her to just hand it all over and keep her head down and make it stop. The cheese she'd lived on her whole life, that quiet, that peace, that head-down peace was gone, and she had to decide every single week to keep walking without it. But the drawer filled. $5, then a little more. And the portion that was never hers fell off the top of the debt like dead bark off a live tree. 16 months. That was how long it took. $14,000 gone, and the better part of it not by paying but by proving, by writing her own name down on her own behalf until the system that had only ever read it off a mailbox finally had to read it off a letter she sent. Her check came to her whole again on a Friday in spring. She stood in the kitchen and held it and felt nothing dramatic, just a quiet so large she had to sit down inside it. She bought a key. That was the thing she did to mark it. She took a little brass blank to the hardware man on the avenue and had him cut it to the old bureau lock, the lock she'd kept shut with tape for 3 years, and she threaded the key on a ribbon and tied it around her own neck under her blouse, where it lay cool against her chest all day at the register. The first time after that, a collector called the store phone asking for Pamela Dorsey, last name first. She did not shrink, and she did not apologize. She said, "This is she, even and clear," and she answered every question with the calm of a woman who had read her own papers, and when she hung up, her hands were not shaking. She rang up the next customer. She gave a child his $1. The orange streetlight that used to find her in the dark could not find a thing in her to frighten anymore. There was a young woman started coming through her line that summer. A girl, really. Couldn't have been 25. A baby on her hip and her own last name, already going hard around the eyes. She was always counting, this girl, always $1 short, always with a letter folded in her back pocket that she'd touch the way you touch a sore tooth. Pam knew that touch. She had carried that exact envelope under rubber bands for 2 years. And one slow evening, when the store was empty and the buffer hummed 2 aisles over, Pam watched the girl set down a pack of diapers and a phone card and decide right there which one she could not afford. And it was the same look Pam had worn at this same register her whole life. The look of a woman paying for a name she shared with people who forgot it was hers too. Pam slid the $1 across, the way she always had. But this time she said more. "Whose is it?" she asked, nodding at the girl's back pocket. "The letter, is it yours or is it somebody's you signed for?" The girl looked at her like the question wasn't allowed. Pam knew that look from the inside too. So she reached up and pulled the ribbon out from under her blouse and showed the girl the little brass key, warm from her own skin. And she told her about a drawer a girl bought one braid at a time so she'd have one place in the world that was only hers. She told her to keep something back before she fed the rest. $5. A drawer. A key. "Your name is the one thing nobody can repossess," Pam said. And she heard Miss Erlene in her own mouth, heard her mother in it too. But turned now, the head down part lifted up. "Long as you keep the key." The girl didn't cry either. The strong ones rarely do at first. But she stood up a half-inch straighter leaving than she'd come in, and she looked back once at the register, and Pam saw the whole of it, saw herself at every age, the girl on the scrubbed stoop and the woman with the taped drawer, and the one standing here now with a key against her chest, all of them in that one look back. Comment down below, day 1, and tell me one thing you're going to keep back this week just for you. $1. 1 drawer. One thing in your name that nobody else can reach. I read every single one of these, so don't be shy. And if there's a woman in your life carrying a weight that was never hers to carry, a sister, a friend, your own mother, send this to her tonight. She needs to hear that the name is still hers. If this is the kind of story that meets you where you are, subscribe and tap that little bell so the next time one of these comes around you don't miss it. This space was built for women like Pam, like you. And if you want to take the first step today, the way Pam took hers, there's a free app that will help you bring a little order to all of this, 1 drawer at a time. The link is right there in the comments. You don't have to fight everything at once. You just have to keep the key. I'll see you in the next one.